Hi everybody, welcome to Lord of the Reads. Today's video is going to be my 5-star predictions. This was originally only going to be 10 books, but I looked at my Goodreads TBR and there were a lot more than 10 books on there that I was really excited to read. So this list is going to be 20 books, so that it's not too long. Also, we're filming on one battery, so there will not be a lot of information or synopsi, whatever the plural for synopsis is. Yes, there's not going to be a whole lot of that. I'll give a short summary of what each book is about, but not very much more. So let's get into the first book. The first book on this list is Winter by Marissa Meyer. This is the 4th book in the Lunar Chronicles. I read the first book, Cinder, at the beginning of 2020. And it's about a girl who, she's a cyborg and she's a mechanic. And she lives in the future where there's a really bad disease going on. So the whole kingdom is trying to find some kind of antidote, and she gets sucked into this big plot after meeting the prince. After I read this book in 2 days, and I read all the other books like within the same week, so I read all these books really fast because they were really good. And I haven't been able to get a hold of this one, but I really want to read it. I think I gave all the other books 5 stars, and I know that I'm going to love this one. The next book on this list is The Captive Kingdom by Jennifer A. Nielsen. This is the 4th book in the Ascendance trilogy, so I guess it's no longer a trilogy. But it follows, the first book, The False Prince, follows a boy named Sage. And this man named Connor comes and gets him out of the orphanage, and he has 3 other boys. And Connor's plan is to get one of these boys to pretend to be the long-lost prince so that he can rule the kingdom. This was another one of the books that I read earlier on in the year, and I read through the entire trilogy, and I thought it was over. But as soon as I found out that there was a 4th book, and there's now going to be a 5th book that's going to be released sometime this year, I think. But as soon as I figured out that there was going to be another book, I was super excited to read it, because I gave all the other ones 5 stars. They were amazing, and I know I'm going to give this one 5 stars as well. The next book on this list is The Tower of Nero by Rick Riordan. This is the 5th book in the Trials of Apollo series. I don't remember when the first book came out. I think it was last year that I read the first book, and I caught up, and then I was waiting for this one to come out, and I loved all the first ones. So this follows the god Apollo, and he did something wrong, so Zeus banished him and made him a human until he can complete a certain amount of challenges and become a god again. I love everything that Rick Riordan writes. So when I found out about this series and I started reading it, I loved it. And I gave all the first books 5 stars. I think there might have been one that I gave 4 stars, but they were all really high ratings because they were amazing. The writing is wonderful, and the story and the jokes are hilarious. It's amazing, and I can't wait to read this one. The next book on this list is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. I was super excited when I found out about this book. I can't speak today. Okay. Super excited when I found out about this book. I read the first book, Chain of Gold, at the end of 2020, or like mid-end, maybe September. And it ended up being my favorite book of 2020. It was fantastic. And I knew that it was the first book in a series, but I didn't know when the other books were coming out. And then I was scrolling on Goodreads, and I found that this book was coming out, and I was super excited. It comes out sometime in 2021. I think it's early 2021. Might be February, might be March, I'm not sure. But I love the first book. It's about this girl named Cordelia, and she lives in this world where there are demons and angels, and there are shadow hunters who are supposed to get rid of the demon so that the regular people can live without that danger. And she moves into London, into a new group of shadow hunters, because there's one for each country. And she moves to London, and she's trying to integrate herself socially so that she can save her father from a whole bunch of accusations. And then she gets pulled into this big plot, and a whole bunch of things happen. I love this book, and I cannot wait to read the second one, Chain of Iron. The next book on this list is Ghostwood Song by Erica Waters. I have not seen very much about this at all. I saw it was on my Goodreads recommendations, and I read through the synopsis, and I loved it. So, it's about this girl who inherits her father's fiddle. And with this fiddle, she can bring the dead back to life or talk to the dead. And she doesn't want to use it because she doesn't want all that responsibility and power. But when her brother is accused of committing a crime and sent to jail, she has to decide whether she's going to use the fiddle and figure out what really happened, or if she's going to let her brother stay in jail. I love paranormal, fantasy, thriller, all those things, which it sounds like this is what this book is. As soon as I read it, I knew that I wanted to read it. I haven't seen it hardly anywhere, but as soon as I read the synopsis, I knew that I was going to love the book. The next book on this list is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Maas is really popular on BookTube, and I know so many people love her books. I have not read any. This is what I would like to start with. I'm going to try to explain the synopsis, but it's going to be super confusing. I tried to do research trying to figure out what it's about. So from what I understand, there's this girl, and she has to support her family, and she goes and she wants to kill an animal for her family to eat. And a wolf is trying to get that animal too, so she kills the wolf. It turns out it was a fairy wolf, and then another fairy wolf comes wanting revenge. So she can either stay and get killed, or she can go with this fairy wolf to the fairy realm. That was my attempt at explaining it. Based on the synopsis, I love things with fairies and like mythical creatures, so I knew that that was going to be something that I really enjoyed. And after hearing so many good things about this entire series, I was really excited to read it. Please ignore whatever's making that sound over there. Okay, so the next book on this list is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is beginning a lot of hype in the last year, actually. I think most of last year, and it's carried over into 2021. So this is, from what I understand, it's about a man, and he's given a special assignment. And his assignment is to go to this orphanage where there are magical children, and he has to decide whether any of them can bring the end of the world. And if so, something has to be done about them. I did not pick it up so much for the synopsis as so much because so many people loved it. As soon as I saw all the hype that everyone was giving it, I knew that I really wanted to read it and see what I thought about it. And after I read the synopsis, I knew that I was going to love it. I love things with magical people and, some magical dangerous people. So I knew that I was going to love it, and I can't wait to read it. The next book is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. From what I understand, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it's about this boy who is cursed to relive his 18th birthday, and he thinks that he can get rid of the curse simply if a girl falls in love with him, until he is also cursed and turned into a beast that destroyed his home and his family. And yes, so he has to make a girl fall in love with him so that the curse will be broken. I love retellings in general. I don't know why. Just something about taking an old story and making it something new. I love it. And this one was I don't know exactly when it was published, but it was, actually it's been super popular around the last year. And when I read the synopsis and I saw how much people were loving it, I knew that I wanted to get to it, especially in 2021, because I want to read more fantasy. So I'm super excited to read that one. I can't wait, and this is one that I'm sure that I'm going to give 5 stars. The next book on this list is City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. I read the first 2 books. This is the 3rd book in the Mortal Instrument series. And I read the first 2 books, it was later in 2020, and I loved them. This was after I read Chain of Gold, so I read them slightly out of order. But after I read that one and I loved it, I wanted to pick up some more of her things. So I read City of Bones and then City of Ashes. And I so wanted to read this book. The first book follows a girl who finds out that there are shadow hunters who kill off demons so that regular people can live. And she is thought to be one of them, even though she never knew about them and didn't know that they existed, and everyone thinks that she's one of them. So she gets sucked into a world with all of them and has to try to make her own way. After reading the first 2 books, this book is a must in 2021. I'm so excited. I gave the other 2 books 5 or 4 stars. And I cannot wait to read this one. The next book on this list is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I heard nothing about this book, but as soon as I did, I knew that I had to read it. It's about this world where there are wizards that have these special abilities, and then you follow this one girl who does not have any, grand power like all the other wizards. She lives in a bakery, and she can make gingerbread men dance. As soon as I heard the concept, I really wanted to read it. And then she finds a dead body on the bakery floor, and there is a serial killer roaming the streets. As soon as I saw what this was about, I knew that I had to read it. This sounds so amazing. I love fantasy. I think this is a middle grade. I could be wrong, but I think it's a middle grade, and a middle grade fantasy with a bakery just sounds superb, and I cannot wait to read it. The next book on this list is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This is about a man who started this college. I think it's a university, and he founded this university, but then shortly after, his family was taken away from him, kidnapped, and all that was left was a note that said Truly Devious. And then years later, you follow this girl who is going to attend the school. She starts her first year, and she is set out to find Truly Devious. And then something happens, and Truly Devious returns to the school for whatever reason. This was really popular when it came out, and I think it's still kind of popular. And the synopsis, I like murder mysteries. This one spans 3 books, but I think there's a 4th one, and the mystery spans all those. I've never read a series where there was mysteries that span a few books. I'm really excited for this one. Murder mysteries sounds fun. Set at a school, and also the covers are amazing. I hate to say that I picked it up just for the cover, but I kind of picked it up because the cover looks amazing. So this one is one that I'm sure I'll give 5 stars. The next book on this list is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. This is a book about this boy whose grandfather dies, and he finds that he was in something about magical children. He was part of or associated with an orphanage where there was magical children, and it's a secret to everyone else, but he wants to go and find out, so he wants to go to this orphanage. I watched the movie 3 years ago, and I loved the movie, and I didn't even know it was a book at the time. but as soon as I found out that it was a book, I wanted to read it. Also, there are a few people that I've seen on BookTube who absolutely adore this book. It's one of their favorites, so I really want to get to it. I don't remember how many books are in the series. I think it's 4 or 5 books, and I think it's the last book that's coming out this year, so I want to catch up so that I can get through the entire series. And based on the movie, if it's anything like the movie, I'm not expecting it to be the exact same. But if it's close, based on what it's about, I think that this is definitely going to be a 5-star read. The next book on this list is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I've heard amazing things about everything that has ever been written by V.E. Schwab. And this was her newest book, I think, and it follows a girl who's made a deal with the devil and she can live forever. However, she is bound to be forgotten by everyone she ever meets, until one day, one person remembers her. Based on the synopsis, I really want to read the book. I love fantasy and things like this where something as strange as this. I've never read a book where anything like this has ever happened, and I'm super excited. Plus all the hype that's gone around this book and everyone's saying that they love it. I cannot wait to read it, and I'm sure that it'll be 5 stars when I do. The next book on this list is Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in a series. I don't remember if the series actually had a name. Shadow and Bone series, we'll call it that. But the first book is Shadow and Bone, and it follows a girl who lives in this country where there are people that can use magical abilities, and they're called Grisha. And there is a place in this country called the Fold, and it's dark, it's covered in dark fog, and evil things live in there, and people don't want to go through it, but they have to in order to trade with other countries. And she has to go, and when she does, something happens, and everyone thinks that she is a Grisha with a special rare ability that no one else has. So she gets whisked to the palace to be trained to use this ability. As soon as I read the first book, I think I gave it a 5 stars. And I knew that I was going to read the next 2 books fairly soon after I finished that one because I loved it. It was the first thing I read by Leigh Bardugo after hearing so many great things about the Grishaverse in general. And after reading that, I can see why it's so hyped up, and I cannot wait to read the next books. So the next book on this list is Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. This is the 3rd book in the Hunger Games trilogy, and in the first book we follow a girl named Katniss, and she has to participate in the Hunger Games. So she goes to the stadium and she has to fight to the death with a group of children. And I loved that book. I'm currently reading Catching Fire, which is the 2nd book, and so far I'm loving it, and this book's going to be one that I read fairly shortly after reading the 2nd one because I love the trilogy. It's amazing. I had heard for so many years that it was really good, and as soon as I picked up the first one and I finished it, I understood why everyone liked it so much. So definitely this is going to be read soon, and I'm sure that it's going to be 5 stars. The next book on this list is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is in the Hunger Games world. However, it's a prequel in the villain's point of view. I really, really enjoy books that are set in either a villain's point of view or in like a morally gray character's point of view. Something about being inside the mind of a villain. I love it. It's super intriguing. And as soon as I found out that this one was coming out, it came out in 2020. Sometime at the end of 2020, I think. I was super excited to read it. All I know is that it follows the villain, and it's a prequel. So it happens, I think it's about the founding of the Hunger Games, possibly. I might be wrong about that, but I think that it might have something to do with that. And this is a book that I'm really excited about, and that I'm sure that I'll enjoy. The next book on this list is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is about a girl who all of her family died, so she is taken to the fairy high court and to live there. And she does not fit in. And she really wants to fit in. But in order to do that, because the fairies don't really like humans, in order to do that, she has to defy the prince, who's a really mean and cruel person. This got a lot of hype. Actually, a lot of Holly Black's books did. So many people are finishing the trilogy. This is one that I'm really excited to read. Based on the synopsis, I think I'm really going to enjoy it. I'm not sure how dense it is. I know that there are fairies, but I don't know if it's super, like, high fantasy, or if it just has mythical creatures and it doesn't really have too much of a focus on that. But either way, I know I'm really going to enjoy it, and I'm sure that it'll be a high rating when I finally get to it. The next book on my list is Under the Green Hill by Laura L. Sullivan. I heard nothing about this book. I don't remember where I picked it up at. Might have been a resale shop. I don't actually know why I picked it up. But I was looking at my shelves about a month ago, and I saw this book, and I picked it up because I didn't know what this book was about. And when I read the synopsis, I was super excited and wanted to get to it soon. So it's about this group of children who go to stay with their grandparents, I think, or it might have been great-grandparents. But they go to live with their grandparents, and they arrive on a 7th summer. So every 7 summers in their grandparents' land, or the country, there are a group of fairies that emerge, and they have to pick a human champion to fight. And they want one of the boys to be the person that they fight. And if they don't, they will run havoc on the earth, or so they have the choice of the fairies to destroy the earth or to send their brother to fight the fairies. Once again, I love books with magical creatures, so I think that this one's going to be one that I'm really going to enjoy. And I haven't read a lot of fantasy middle grade, so this is one that I'm really excited to read, and that I'm sure I'll give it a high rating. Also, this apparently has a sequel that I didn't know about called Guardians of the Green Hill. I had no clue about that either. So, the entire series is going to be one that I'm hoping to read soon, and that I'm really going to enjoy, I'm sure, when I finally get to it. The next book on this list is Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb has been really popular recently, and I found out about this book, and I really wanted to read it. So it's about this world, and there are ships in this world, and once 3 generations of family die on a ship, the ship comes alive and has the memories of the 3 people that died on the ship. That's all I need to know. I love books that have, like, inanimate objects that come alive. It's super interesting to me, and this book is, I want to say that it's close to 1,000 pages. The entire series is actually really big, and so are most of Robin Hobb's books, but this is one that I think I'm going to enjoy when I get to it. I heard that it's really super fast-paced and really thrilling, and I've just heard so many good things about it, so many great reviews. So this is one that I'm hoping to get to soon, and I know that I'm going to love it when I finally read it. The next book is Tequila Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This follows a siren girl who collects human hearts, and when her mother, the queen, finds out, she turns this girl into a human, and she has to bring back a prince's heart to the queen. It didn't make a lot of sense to me why she's being punished for keeping human hearts, and her, punishment to have to go get another human heart. But based on the synopsis, I'm kind of getting, like, Little Mermaid retellings. That's kind of what it sounds like to me, which I like retellings, so I'm sure that I'm going to love this book. And based on the synopsis, the entire thing just sounds amazing. I think there's some love interest between some of the characters, and the entire thing, once again, of mythical creatures. I cannot wait to get to this book. I'm sure I'm going to love it. Plus, I've heard some pretty good things about it, some good reviews. There have been some mixed reviews. Some people didn't love it as much, but based on what I've heard, I'm sure I'm going to love it once I get to it. So that was my list of the books that I think I'm going to give 5 stars when I read them. I'm super excited to read all of these, and I hope I get to them soon. So please don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment down below what books you're really excited to read in 2021. So with that, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!